So when you think about real mastery in English, what does that actually look like for you? Is it just getting the grammar perfect, having a huge vocabulary?
Or is there something deeper?
Exactly. Something more impactful, that lets you connect, really persuade people.
That's right at the core of what we're diving into today. Our goal here really is to explore how you can take your English from just proficient, good communication and push it towards what we're calling world-class influence.
And the way we're tackling that is pretty interesting. We're looking at the life of a communication giant, Oprah Winfrey. Our main source is the C1 Learner's Guide, which uses her incredible journey almost like a living textbook for advanced English learners.
And it's so much more than just, the classic rags to riches narrative. What's really fascinating is how her life itself is like a masterclass in resilience, empathy, persuasion.
Yeah.
It offers these really unique lessons in language and communication that go way beyond just learning grammar rules or vocab lists.
Absolutely. So we're planning to unpack 3 key things through her story. First, how she actually forged that powerful voice of hers dealing with so much adversity.
Possible.
Yeah. Then second, how she built this huge empire, really, on the language of empathy, connection. And finally, how she managed to create this global community basically through being authentic, having that authentic voice. Sound good?
That sounds great. Let's dig in.
Okay, so when we talk about Oprah, it's crucial to remember her story doesn't start in some fancy TV studio.
Not at all.
It starts way back. Rural Mississippi, 1950s. Deep poverty, intense racial segregation. The source makes it clear her early life was just incredibly hard.
Fraught with hardship, trauma, yeah.
But what immediately jumps out, you mentioned this earlier, is that detail about her grandmother. Teaching her to read before she was even 3 years old. It's kind of staggering.
It really is.
So what role do you think that super early literacy played in, how her voice developed later on?
Oh, it was absolutely foundational. You can't overstate it.
Yeah.
It laid all the groundwork.
Yeah.
And then, the local church basically became her first stage.
Right.
She got nicknamed the Little Speaker, apparently, reciting Bible verses, poems. But it wasn't just about performing.
Yeah.
It was about discovering that words, the spoken word, could lift her and the people listening out of those really tough circumstances. For her, words became like tools.
Tools for what?
For survival. Definitely. For escape, for feeling empowered. That really intense early practice in speaking and oration, which came from this deep need to just be seen and heard, that became the bedrock, the absolute foundation of her whole career.
It sounds almost impossibly difficult, her childhood, and yet somehow that's where she finds her voice. So, okay, thinking about our listener, maybe a C1 learner feeling a bit stuck or pressured to sound perfect. What's Oprah's message to them about their own English journey based on her experience?
That's such a key insight from the source, really. Many C1 learners you find have this strong urge to kind of smooth everything out, hide their accent, present this flawless, almost native-like front.
Yeah, I can see that.
But Oprah's story basically yells the exact opposite. Her power didn't come from pretending her difficult past wasn't real. It came from owning it, facing it, learning from it, and actually using it as this source of incredible strength and connection.
Wow.
So your own journey with English, with all the struggles, the breakthroughs, that's your unique origin story. And that's where your linguistic resilience comes from.
Linguistic resilience. I like that term. It really reframes the struggle, doesn't it? And the guide actually gives us some strong vocabulary around this idea.
It does.
What are some of those words? How do they capture what we're discussing?
Well, the source points to words like adversity, just a really difficult situation. To persevere, keep going, even when it's tough.
Formidable someone or something that inspires respect. Maybe even a bit of fear, because it's so powerful. To surmount, which means to overcome a challenge.
Okay.
Indomitable, impossible to defeat or crush. And crucible, which is like a severe test or trial that forces something new to be created. These aren't just vocabulary words to memorize. They really describe the essence of Oprah's early life and, frankly, the journey of lots of learners who reach a really high level in a language.
And it's not just about knowing these concepts, right? It's about actually doing something with them. The source lays out some really practical steps for building that foundational voice.
Yeah, concrete actions.
What's the first tip that really grabs you for our listeners?
I think the first one is about harnessing the sheer power of oration, actually speaking things aloud.
How so?
Find a transcript of a really powerful speech. The guide suggests Oprah's 2018 Golden Globe speech, great example, and practice reading it out loud.
Okay.
But don't just say the words. Try to really embody the speaker's prosody, the rhythm, the stress patterns, the intonation. Exactly. Maybe record yourself, listen back. It builds this physical confidence, speaking with real conviction.
I love that. It's active, not passive. And the second tip is also really powerful narrative journaling.
Absolutely. Think of it like writing your linguistic autobiography.
Okay.
Just take an hour, maybe, and actually write out the story of how you learned English. What were the biggest, most formidable challenges you had to surmount? What was that first moment where you felt like, okay, I broke through? Connecting with that story reminds you that you're not just, a learner. You're a survivor. You've got this indomitable spirit.
That whole idea, your origin story is your superpower. It really makes me think of that story about Javier in the source material.
Javier. Yes, great example.
Tell us about him.
So Javier grew up in this tiny, remote, very poor village in Oaxaca, Mexico. Absolutely no English classes, no resources, nothing.
Wow. So how did he learn?
His textbooks were basically a beat-up secondhand English-Spanish dictionary and the backs of old cereal boxes he found.
That's incredible resourcefulness.
It really is. And his practice space, his church, if you like, was the dusty village square. He'd try to practice with any tourist who'd give him a minute.
That must have been tough. Lots of rejection.
Oh, constantly. And mockery from other kids, too. It was a real crucible, daily, humbling practice. But through that, he learned resilience. Definitely. He learned how to read body language incredibly well and how to listen with this intense focus, just making the most of the little he had.
So what happened to him?
Well, years later, Javier becomes the C1 level adventure tour guide. Fluent English, obviously. But it was his voice, the way he communicated, that made him stand out.
How so?
He could tell the story of a simple cactus or some old ruins and just hold people completely captivated. He basically learned that Oprah lesson without even knowing it.
Which is?
That his origin story, his difficult beginning, wasn't some weakness he needed to hide. It was the actual source of his strength, his unique perspective. And he used that authenticity to connect with his clients, build real rapport. It was powerful.
That's a fantastic story. It leads perfectly into the next big theme, doesn't it? Building on resilience to create connection.
Exactly. Moving into the language of empathy.
So Oprah takes over this struggling talk show in Chicago back in the 80s. Talk shows then were often quite sensationalist, right?
Very much so. Often confrontational.
But she instinctively shifts gears towards genuine, empathetic conversation. How did she actually do that? What did it look like on screen?
Well, the source describes it as a masterclass in active, empathetic communication. Think about her physical presence leaning in, making direct eye contact, validating people's feelings, using phrases like, I hear you, or that must have been so painful, asking open-ended questions, follow-up questions that didn't just ask what happened, but how did that feel?
Probing the emotions.
Exactly. And crucially, she shared her own vulnerabilities, too. It wasn't one-sided. Her show became almost like public therapy. It created these incredibly powerful bonds with her audience and her guests.
So for the C1 learner, what's the linguistic lesson here? We've talked resilience, now empathy.
The key shift here is moving from transactional communication to transformational communication.
Okay, explain that.
Transactional is about the efficient exchange of information. Did I understand the facts correctly? Did I convey my point accurately? C1 learners are often very focused on this, and rightly so, it's important.
But it's not the whole picture.
Exactly. The next level, the transformational level that Oprah mastered, is about listening for the music behind the words.
The music behind the words. I like that.
Yeah, the emotions, the fears, the hopes, the underlying motivations. Empathy, in this sense, is a language that goes beyond just vocabulary and grammar.
So how can our listeners practice this? How do you master empathetic communication? Any tips from the source?
Definitely. First tip, become a real student of the interview.
Meaning?
Watch or listen to in-depth interviews conducted by Oprah. The source mentions examples like her interviews with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle or Lance Armstrong. Study her questions. Notice how she creates that safe space for honesty. What techniques is she using?
Okay, analyze the master at work. What else?
Second, practice active listening in your own life. Set a specific goal for your next conversation in English. Focus entirely on understanding the other person's perspective. Maybe even paraphrase it back to them to check. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you felt.
That takes real focus.
It does. And third, upgrade your questions. Move beyond just gathering information to gathering understanding.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Instead of just asking, is the project on schedule, which is pure information gathering, try asking something like, what's a part of this project that you're feeling most excited about right now? And, what's the part that's maybe causing you the most stress? See the difference.
Big difference. It opens up a whole different kind of conversation.
Exactly. It invites emotional honesty.
And the source also provides some specific language tools for this, right? Key vocabulary for empathy.
Yes, it lists useful phrases for active listening. Things like, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that. Or what I'm really hearing is that you felt. That sounds incredibly challenging or rewarding. And simply tell me more about that.
Simple but powerful.
And it also highlights the importance of powerful, open-ended questions that probe deeper. Questions like, how did that experience shape who you are today? Or what was the single most important lesson you learned from that failure or that success? Or even, what's the story you tell yourself about that? And maybe, what's the underlying fear or hope that's driving this decision? These questions invite reflection and vulnerability.
This really makes me think about the story of Sun Hee, the HR manager.
Yes. Sun Hee and Seoul. Perfect illustration.
Tell us about her situation.
Sun Hee had brilliant English, C1 plus technically perfect grammar, great vocabulary. But in her role as an HR manager, especially during performance reviews, she came across as, cold, robotic even, because her communication was purely transactional. Sticking to the script, focusing only on performance metrics, ticking boxes, people didn't feel heard or understood.
Okay, so she decides to change.
Yes, she decides to study Oprah's methods, specifically focusing on asking those how and why questions, the understanding gathering ones.
And she tries it out.
She conducts what the source calls a radical experiment in her next performance review. She basically throws out her old script. Instead of launching into metrics, she starts by asking an understanding gathering question about the employee's experience.
And what happened?
The transformation was immediate. The employee, initially defensive, just opened up, talked about struggles impacting their morale, things he had no idea about. By using active listening, validating feelings, those Oprah techniques, Sun-Hee completely changed the dynamic. Her effectiveness as a manager skyrocketed because she learned to listen not just for data, but for the human story.
That's incredible. Moving from just accuracy to actual connection. Okay, so that deep empathy, that connection, how does that scale up? How does it become influence on a massive, even global level? Which brings us to our third part, the language of influence.
Right. Because as the Oprah Winfrey Show just exploded in popularity, Oprah didn't stop there. She masterfully expanded her reach.
We're talking, the Oprah magazine.
Harpo Studios, her production company, and of course Oprah's book club. The Oprah effect became this undeniable cultural and economic force.
So what was the secret ingredient there? How did she achieve that level of influence? Was it just her fame, her charisma?
Charisma was definitely part of it, sure. But the source argues, and I think convincingly, that the fundamental secret was her authenticity.
Authenticity, how did that manifest?
Well, she didn't just interview people or endorse things from a distance. She consistently shared her own stuff. Her own struggles with weight, her childhood trauma, her passions, her journey of self-discovery.
She put herself out there.
Completely. Her entire brand was built on this foundation of trust and a very consistent, value-driven message. She wasn't just selling products. She was sharing a worldview.
And that famous phrase, what I know for sure, that was key, wasn't it?
Absolutely key. It appeared in her magazine column in speeches. It wasn't just a catchy phrase. Rhetorically, it's brilliant. It frames her opinions not as universal objective facts, but as hard-won personal truths derived from her own experience.
So it's authoritative, but also vulnerable.
Exactly. That blend of vulnerability and authority created this incredibly loyal community. People didn't just see her as a TV host. They saw her as a trusted friend, a guide, someone who understood them because she shared her own journey.
So what's the big linguistic lesson here for our C1 listener? You've got the technical skills, the vocabulary, the grammar. Now what?
Now the crucial question becomes, with all those tools, what do you actually want to say? What's your core message? Your idea worth spreading, to borrow the TED Talks phrase.
Finding your own voice.
Precisely. To move from being just proficient in English to being truly influential, you need to develop that authentic voice and figure out your core message. Real influence, the source argues, comes from having a clear, consistent point of view and expressing it through compelling personal storytelling.
Okay, so how do you do that? The source must have some practical tips again.
It does. 3 main ones. First, Discover your own what I know for sure through journaling, reflection. Try to articulate maybe 2 or 3 core principles or really important lessons you've learned from life or your career. That becomes the bedrock of your authentic voice.
Okay, find your core beliefs. What's second?
Build your story library. Make a list of pivotal moments from your life. A major success, yeah, but also a significant failure. A time you changed your mind about something important. A key learning moment.
Got it.
Then practice telling these stories. Concisely, compellingly. These aren't just anecdotes. They are incredibly powerful tools of persuasion and connection.
Your personal stories as influence tools. Makes sense. And the third tip?
Study the rhetoric of influence. Pay attention to how Oprah and other really effective speakers structure their arguments and use language for impact.
Any specific devices mentioned?
Yes, the source highlights a couple. Anaphora, that's repeating a word or phrase at the beginning of successive clauses. Think of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream. Or, as the source notes, Oprah might say something like, it is our courage, it is our resilience, it is our hope. Creates rhythm and emphasis.
Right. Very powerful.
And also the triad, or the rule of 3. Presenting ideas or points in groups of 3 just makes them more memorable, more satisfying somehow. Like saying, we need a solution that is fair, effective, and sustainable. It just lands better.
These are tangible techniques you can actually learn and apply.
Absolutely. They're tools for making your message stick.
And there's a great story illustrating this, isn't there? David, the activist.
Yes, David, a passionate environmental activist from Brazil, working to protect the Amazon.
His English was good.
Excellent C1 level, perfect for presenting facts. But his presentations at international conferences were, well, they were data dumps.
Lots of stats graphs.
Exactly. Alarming statistics, grim scientific data about deforestation. People were informed, sure, but they weren't moved. They didn't feel compelled to act.
He wasn't connecting.
Not emotionally. Then apparently he watched an Oprah documentary and had this light bulb moment.
Which was?
Oprah didn't sway people with statistics. She swayed them with stories. David realized he was failing to tell the most crucial story of all, the human story of the Amazon.
So he changed his whole approach.
Completely revamped his presentation. Instead of starting with a graph showing deforestation rates, he started with a powerful portrait of a tribal elder he knew personally. He told that elder's story using really evocative language. He shared his own personal connection, like describing standing on a hill from his childhood. And I looked out, not at a sea of green, but at a wasteland of gray stumps. He used that what I know for sure framing too. What I know for sure is that when we lose a forest, we don't just lose trees. We lose a library of memories, a cathedral of spirits, and a part of our own soul.
Powerful stuff, much better than just data points.
Way better. He swapped out dense data slides for compelling images, personal narratives. He started consciously using rhetorical devices, like the ones we just discussed, that he learned from studying Oprah.
And the result?
Astounding, according to the source. His new presentation style got standing ovations. People came up to him afterwards, sometimes with tears in their eyes, genuinely wanting to get involved, move to action. By shifting from that impersonal language or data to the authentic, story-driven language of influence, David finally found a voice that was powerful enough to carry the immense weight of his mission.
That's a truly inspiring example of putting it all together. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Summarizing this deep dive today. Oprah's life, it's clearly way more than just a celebrity story.
Oh, much more. It's really a testament to how language can be utterly transformative when you use it with courage, with empathy, and with real, authentic purpose.
And her journey offers this incredibly practical roadmap for you as an advanced English learner, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The lessons are pretty clear, I think. First, forge your voice from your own story. Understand that your background, your struggles, your unique path, that's not a liability, it's your greatest strength.
Own your origin story. Got it.
Second, really master the language of empathy. Recognize that the highest level of communication isn't just about speaking clearly. It's about truly deeply listening, moving from transaction to transformation.
Listen for the music behind the words. And third,
develop your own authentic core message. Figure out what you stand for, what you know for sure, and then use the power of personal narrative, your story library, to build trust and genuinely inspire action.
So for you listening, if you're at that C1 level, you're really on the verge of true mastery. You have the tools, the words, the grammar, the understanding.
Yeah, the technical skill is there.
The final step, it seems, is to infuse all that skill with the kind of humanity that Oprah models so brilliantly.
Exactly. It's about finding the courage to be a bit vulnerable, maybe. having the discipline to listen with your whole self, not just your ears, and developing the clarity to speak your own hard-won truth.
And the goal isn't to become a clone of Oprah, obviously.
Not at all. The goal is to take these principles, resilience from your story, deep empathy, authentic influence, and apply them to unlock the most powerful, effective version of yourself in English.
Her story is the inspiration, maybe the reminder, that the most resonant voice, the most influential voice you can possibly have, is the one that is ultimately unmistakably your own.